Nilikuambia. We'll talk about that later. AFCON tournament, the Elephants triumphed over the Super Eagles. But yes, this is the Morning Cafe. This being the 12th of February. It's a very crazy week, I know.
Oh, yes.
Very
Two more days to go. Actually, one
very
more day.
Interesting for Nyaringita and the like. But anyway, welcome to Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Ndimule. How hot is the coffee where you are?
And I'm used to really Stanley Nyaringita. Prepare yourself for a whole marvelous Monday morning. Today we discuss matters safe intimacy just 2 days before Valentine's Day. Naweza kuwa umepata mpoa, but how do you engage in all that? We'll be giving you all that info at around 8 a.m. So stick around for that.
All right, a quick look at the headlines this morning. And on the Star, Raila 2027 bid new faces in as old guard sit out. Some nice politics there.
Meanwhile, Business Daily shilling stages 10-day rally against top EAC currencies. We'll be telling you all about that and what experts are saying.
On the Daily Nation, inside fight for control of 435 billion shillings matters education.
And on the Standard, tough choices in the face of a crisis. We have the photos of 3 top leaders in the country.
And on the People Daily, churches, how Ruto duped us. Interesting headline there.
I'll be telling you why and how the church feels that way. And those are the dailies for you. Oh, kuna gazeti la Taifa leo.
Kalonzo apanua Mbawa. Nilidhani ingekuwa Mbawa anyway. Gazeti la Taifa leo.
We'll also be telling you about Kalonzo Musyoka's itinerary in around the Mount Kenya region, starting yesterday, today, as well as tomorrow. That's coming up in the news diary. But first, let's take a look at what to expect in the roads this morning. As kama kawaida, it's around 6 a.m., so not much to report really. Do take a look at quite a number of roads that have that red line. And this is just before you hit the Muthaiga roundabout, just actually after the Muthaiga roundabout. There seems to be a traffic and a slight traffic snarl up, so be keen to look at that. It definitely eases up later, even as you head into the CBD. That is just how the roads are looking like. Last week I promised to be taking a look at the weather in different parts of the country. Today I'm taking a look at Kiambu County, and it is 17 degrees Celsius in Kiambu County. Promises to get a little maybe chillier as the hour goes by, but then it will get as hot as 27 degrees Celsius. That's around Kiambu County and its environs really. We'll be getting there on the screen for the dailies.
All right. Let's now take a look at the main highlights this morning and kick off on a very sad note. Men's marathon world record holder Kelvin Kiptum killed in a road accident on Sunday night along the Eldoret Eldamaravine Road alongside his Wandi's coach Javes Hakizimana.
And to something that Fred won't shut up about. Night-long celebrations erupt in the streets of Abidjan after hosts Ivory Coast came from behind to beat Nigeria and win the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations final on home soil.
Story here. There they are, the champions of Africa. Cote d'Ivoire twice winners twice run, and the Super Eagles are in the lead.
And definitely congratulations to the mighty elephants of Ivory Coast, to the Super Eagles and fans of Nigeria. Well, there's always next time. There's Morocco coming up, and then you can also wait for 2027 when Kenya and Tanzania as well as Uganda will be hosting the tournament.
Oh, yes.
Let's go straight to the diary now.
Let's take a look at the diary now. And first off, the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security will today hold a joint public participation with the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee on the National Government Administration Laws Bill. This even as the 13th Parliament is expected to resume tomorrow. We'll be giving you more details about that. Meanwhile, something I had alluded earlier to, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka is expected to tour Meru and Embu counties in the Mount Kenya region for a whole Wiper recruitment drive. So today, Kalonzo is set to have a breakfast meeting with all the Mount Kenya church leaders and later conduct a Meet the People kind of tour at Gakoromoni Market. And let's take a look at some itinerary of Cabinet Secretary of the Ministry of Information, Communications and the Digital Economy, that is Eli Dowalo, will be today the chief guest at the Data-Driven Cities. That is the conference for the urban common good. And in the corridors of justice today, former Busia Governor Sospeter Ojamong will be appearing before the Milimani Anti-Corruption Court for the next 2 days, starting today, for the hearing of a case where he is charged with conspiracy to commit an economic crime. Meanwhile, also today, we do expect the Law Society of Kenya to plan a protest outside the DCI headquarters, that is along Kiambu Road. And this is according to the president of LSK, that is Eric Theory, who says a member of his firm, Beatrice Ngeve, was reportedly abducted by DCI detectives on Friday, and they'll be camping outside DCI headquarters this morning to protest on the same. We'll be giving you live pictures once we have them on that protest. On Today in History, back in 2016, a day like today, something that Fred, I know you back then, you reported on as well. Judges of the International Criminal Court dealt a major blow to prosecutors trying to convict William Ruto, who was the then deputy president at the time of a post-election violence, by ruling that some testimony against him was inadmissible. That is 2016, a day like today. There's a news diary and Today in History for you. This news diary will be updated during the county diary, the very tail end. Right now tuingie kwenye magazetini.
All right, straight to the Standard. Tough choices in the face of a crisis. That's a big headline on the front page of the Standard. Matters to do with IEBC. Now they say that tomorrow, Parliament returns from its December recess to a defining moment. The courts have said the reconstitution of IEBC must not wait for political horse trading. House to debate the National Dialogue report, even as Azimio leader Raila Odinga says that the opposition must be involved in the selection of commissioners or they resume demonstrations. It is a Solomonic moment for Speaker Moses Wetangula. That story has been extensively covered on page 4 of the Standard, and the faces of those people at play here. The president, of course, Speaker Moses Wetangula will have to make a determination, and Raila Odinga, who has already said that the political parties must be involved in that. And the highlights on the front page of the Standard this morning: KRA hits farms with 1.1 billion shilling in tax arrears. Seven Seas Company will have to fork out 900 million shillings, while Highland Drinks will part with 403 million shillings after losing their appeals at the tax tribunal. On the bottom strip of the Standard, adversities reel from cost of losing court cases, and in the past 3 years, public universities have lost billions on the corridors of justice after judges ruled in favor of litigants. And yes, University of Nairobi incurred losses, the highest loss of 2.67 billion shillings. Moi University, 131 million. Kisii University 631, and so on and so forth. On the top strip of the Standard, more highlights there. Shock at another brutal murder of woman in hotel. And this happened somewhere in Naivasha. The story is on page 3. Police in Naivasha are investigating the murder of a woman whose body was found in a hotel room in Naivasha. The naked body of the middle-aged woman was found at a lodging in town with the throat slit with a knife. Another unfortunate incident there. On the international front, a panic in Goma City as M23 advance. And a lot has been happening in DR Congo. A lot is not being reported as well. In business, scrutiny as state expands oil import deal. And in sports, City leads as Champions League returns. That story is on page 29. On the back page of the Standard, of course, a lot of orange there following that win. But I'm sure this story must have been written earlier before the Elephants emerged victorious over the Super Eagles of Nigeria. So we'll just leave it at that. That's the Standard this morning.
And the Daily Nation, inside fight for control of 435 billion Kenyan shillings, is the big story in bold, and they call it matters reforms. Rao adds to growing concerns in the education sector. Photos of top leaders in the education sector, some contentious issues. The ministry wants to supervise school managers spending billions, about 365,000 teachers not exclusively answerable to commission, tussling over 1.3 billion Kenyan shillings training of CBC teachers. Commission sidestepped ministry to draft bill. Bill undermines proposals by Presidential Task Force, or the Presidential Task Force, and who will submit the proposed law to cabinet. TSC demands powerful regional and county offices. So the Education Ministry and unions have ganged up against the TSC. The battle lines are drawn between the warring factions. The Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu and TSC boss Nancy Mashari, who are pictured there. And it's a fierce scramble for a huge education budget. Quite a number of highlights focused on this paper on the front page. On the left, matters politics and IEBC. Kenya Kwanza Azimio camps in fresh IEBC war. And a panel appointed by President Ruto has restarted the recruitment of poll commissioners, prompting threats of street protests by allies of opposition leader Raila Odinga. On the bottom, matters crime. Murder news tightens on man wanted in the US. Police are closing in on fugitive Kevin Kang'ethe, who strolled out of Muthaiga police station last Tuesday. His phone signal has been traced to Machakos, Nairobi, and Kiambu. It's almost a week later. On the right, grief as school bus crashes pupil to death. That is on page 2. Matters AFCON. Ahmed Musa, the silent master running the show in Super Eagles camp. The very top, ex-police boss and Uhuru's many missed calls at Bomas. Retired senior police officer King'ori Mwangi, who died yesterday, was a man of many fasts and controversies. His role at the Bomas of Kenya during the 2013 presidential election and tenure as regional police chief were dramatic. That is on page 10. On the behind the back page, they're focusing on matters AFCON, matters sports today. AFCON, Africa Cup of Nations, from the January 13th to the 11th of February, which was yesterday. Hola, key pillar behind Cote d'Ivoire's steady rise. And at the very top, Singapore youngster Tan wins 2024 Magical Kenya Ladies Open tournament by 4 points at Vipingo Ridge in Kilifi. That is the Daily Nation for you.
All right, let's take a look at the People Daily. Churches, how Ruto duped us. They call it a deal gone sour. Clergy who backed Kenya Kwanza entered an MOU with a candidate which would have seen them reap big after victory, but claim head of state no longer takes their calls. Interesting, that story is on page 4. And they talk about some of the promises to the clergy, appointments to commissions, state corporations, foreign missions, cabinet boards and committees of national and county governments, nomination to National Assembly, Senate and county assemblies, access to government support and resources, tax waivers and exemptions, formation of clergy circle, formation of registrar of religious organizations, formation of cabinet docket for Ministry of National Guidance and Religious Affairs, and also facilitation of formation of chaplaincy, mediation and arbitration. And they now say all these promises have come to naught. On the front page of the People Daily, they've also given prominence to the news of the death of a former deputy police IG. Curtains fall on former officer Kingori, that's Kingori Mwangi, who once served as PPO Nairobi. On the top strip of the People Daily, two more highlights. Queries after anti-graft magistrate transferred. And also on matters education, experts raise a red flag of education policies. The lobby questions the rush to implement e-citizen payment, Munavu team, university funding model, and JSS. And that's the front page of the People Daily today.
Let's take a look at the front page of the Star. Matters politics. Fresh blood. Politburo's mandate is to develop new strategies, and they say Raila 2027 bid. New faces in as old guards sit out. Former Prime Minister is also expanding his political networks, set for countrywide tours on pages 4 and 5. They have quite a number of pictured photos of leaders in the Azimio coalition. Abdul Somah Nasir, Governor of Mombasa, Upio Wandai, Minority Leader, Mbakasi East MP Babu Owino, Malindi MP Amina Mnyazi, Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna, Kilifi Senator Stuart Madzayo, Migori MP Fatuma Mohamed, as well as ODM Chair John Mbadi. On the left, anxiety rocks cabinet ahead of appraisal meeting. The president is set to host a second retreat with CSs and top government officials next week. Anxiety has rocked government quarters ahead of a meeting seen as a precursor to a looming cabinet reshuffle, rather shake-up. During the meeting, CSs are expected to report to the president how they have fared with the Kenya Kwanza's development blueprint. And from the first that government and the cabinet meeting that we saw, this one you can't really...
It's happening next week.
Yes, so this one they know you can't be late, no matter what.
They'll be there very early.
Oh, very early.
Yeah.
In ile unaika alarm, you're there 2 hours before. Matters crime and what is happening in Naivasha, the recent cases of femicide, woman's throat slit in Shabi Naivasha lodging. At the very bottom, lawmakers probe Uhuru era, 592 billion Kenyan shillings spending. Finally, they call him brilliant and controversial. Kingori Mwangi, combative cop, dies at 62 after a short illness. That in a nutshell is the front page of the Star.
Masuala ya siasa yamepewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Habari kuu pale, Kalonzo apanua mbawa. Hadi sasa kinara wa Wiper aonekana kuwaweka mfukoni Munya, Wamalwa na Raila. Wanasema siku moja baada ya Raila kuashiria kuwa huenda kamunga mkono kwa urais wa mwaka 2027, kinara wa Wiper anaendelea kuvutia ufuasi, Munya akiwa wa majuzi zaidi kumkumbatia hapo jana. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Habari zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Gredi ya 9 iwe katika shule za upili, masuala ya elimu. Kwingineko, ajira za kigeni wauguzi walia magavana. Na pia habari hiyo ya kifo cha Kingori Mwangi inapata nafasi pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Wanasema Kingori Mwangi afa na siri zake. Pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, masuala ya spoti, Arsenal EPL farasi ni 3. Gunners wapaa kwa kulipua West Ham bila imani, wasoma mgongo wa Man City na Liverpool. Na hizo ndizo habari kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo.
Right, let's take a look at Business Daily. They say shilling stages 10-day rally against top EAC currencies And in context of this, the Kenyan shilling is ending its long dismal run after turning the tables against its regional peers last week on the back of marginal gains against major world currencies, raising hopes that the turmoil in the foreign exchange market is ebbing. And 23.98 Kenyan shillings, or the CBK, quoted against the Ugandan shilling on Thursday from 23.72 on January 26th. Other highlights, masuala ya magari pale chini. Second-hand car prices rise up to 600,000 Kenyan shillings. We have how prices of used cars rally as imports drop by 26 billion. So the selected car price changes in 4 months. So selected there, we have the Land Cruiser V8, Toyota Harrier, Mercedes C-Class, Toyota Premio, Honda Fit, and there is a Mazda Demio. On the ticker, 2.75% SHRF deductions to start from the 1st of March. And Kenyans will start paying 2.75% of the pay to the SHRF on that date, quoted there, on the 1st of March, in what will see contributions for top earners rise by more than 8 times. Matters companies' CEOs signal higher pay for employees in looming talent wars. And still in Matters companies, record 621 billion Kenyan shillings defaults push banks into rare profit fall. Well, meanwhile, on the back page of the Business Daily, they say dollar loans rise to 1.2 trillion Kenyan shillings as firms cut forex exposure. That is on the back page of the Business Daily.
All right, let's now take a look at regional matters, and we start off with the East African, and the big headline there: spanned by Somalia, milked by Djibouti, Abiy turns to Lamu. It's about Ethiopia. I talk about Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. The decision hands a lifeline to the moribund Kenyan port and fresh impetus to the regional LAPSET project. The story is on page 5. The other stories there: Kenya signs contract to put SGR on track. Nairobi says it's ready to roll out the Naivasha-Malaba face as Uganda seeks advisor. Elsewhere, staff flight stalls Uganda Airlines growth plans. That's the front page of the East African, which runs across the region. We can now go straight to Uganda and see what's the big news there. We kick off with the Daily Monitor. Government agency merger gets cabinet approval. The clearing of the 30 bills to by a special sitting of cabinet last Thursday now paves the way for tabling of the items in Parliament tomorrow. It is expected to bring an end to a to and fro process that was stalled since 2017. And yes, there's a photo there of another high-profile wedding in Uganda. Katikiro Mayiga's son takes home his rib. Katikiro must be one of those royal families. Buganda Katikiro. I think Katikiro is a king. Mm-hmm. Yes. That's the Daily Monitor. And we still have the New Vision. On the New Vision, S4 repeaters to sit special UNEB exams, matters education. Districts have a week to identify centers for repeaters. The story is on page 3. Now, this used to be a very big issue in Kenya. Those students who repeat classes. That forms the headline there. And also another photo of Katikiro's son tying the knots. Beautiful photo there on the front page. It's big news in Kampala, Uganda, that wedding of the Katikiro's son.
Right. I was trying to get a fresh daily of the New Times. That is the Rwanda's paper. I think they still have the weekend edition. Mm-hmm. What was happening? Matters budget review. Government to increase public spending by 85 Rwandan francs, 85 billion Rwandan francs. But away from that, from Rwanda to Tanzania, the Citizen, which I think we deduced is can be the equivalent of the Business Daily in Tanzania, Matters Business really, missed growth focus, put models under scrutiny. And they say Tanzania economists have joined the international debate, raising issues about the veracity of present economic growth-focused models and methodology. They're also paying tribute to Edward Lowassa's last public event that never was. And that is, in a nutshell, is The Citizen. Kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi, Friends of Lowassa wafunguka. Wasema milima mabonde safari ya Lowassa kusaka urais. Kwingineko, Zito amkomalia Rais Mwinyi utekelezaji SUK. Pale juu magari 10 ya gongana, wawili wajeruhiwa, ziara ya Makonda ikikatishwa. Hiyo ndio gazeti la kule Bongo.
All right. We've taken a look at The Citizen.
Yes.
Okay. So let's come back home and take a look at the cartoons, page 13 of the Daily Nation and page 12 of the Standard. We start off with the cartoon on page 13 of the Daily Nation, and it depicts the maze that is the bursary situation. No clear way to actually get or receive this benefit of the bursary, and how students and parents struggle to navigate through this process of actually getting money that should be getting to them anyway. That's what is being depicted on page 13 of the Daily Nation.
And this reminds me, yesterday we were having a live link with Dennis Njiru, reporter from Naivasha, and he was saying it was a whole behavior of activity. Parents had, with their children there, they were trying to get the bursaries, and there were quite hundreds and hundreds of them. They really were saying they've been camping there since morning. So live and what is really happening in different parts of the country, really.
It is a sad state of affairs, especially for parents who are just seeking to take their children to school.
From matters education to matters politics, a gentleman is playing cards, or rather holding cards there. That's the spade, the love heart, and the flowers. They all have interesting numbers that you wouldn't really see on the normal pack of cards that you probably have at home. They have 20 as well as the 27. And he's probably saying or thinking me, but in that me and ME, there is Kalonzo and Musyoka inscribed in all of it. And this gentleman is wearing that famous Godfather hat, inscribed the R, initials for rather majorly seen in the Azimio collision, and for Raila Odinga.
All right, that's the Standard. Let's take a look at page 10 of the People Daily. Sister No's take.
Similar take also, matters politics.
Matters Azimio succession.
Well, the gentleman seated on that seat, that seat there says, as you can see, I have no problem handing over to Kalonzo. But it seems as if the crown has been chained to the chair he's having, and he's probably now plucking that crown off him.
I guess people are doubting whether or not his sentiments that he could possibly back Kalonzo, if they're genuine, or will he actually do it? That's a big question then as far as Azimio succession politics are concerned. All right. After the break, we'll be looking at State of the Nation. Today we have a very powerful panel of eminent Kenyans. Samuel Pogisio, former Majority Leader, Senate, and former ICT Minister, will be in studio, alongside Kipruto Rapkirwa, former Agriculture Cabinet Minister, and Philip Kisia, Leadership and Governance Expert. Do stand by for that. The conversation on social media, TV47 News, and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. You're watching Morning Cafe. back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. Time for us to take a look at the state of the nation, the big headlines. And to help us do that this morning, we're very privileged to have very eminent Kenyans. We have Kipruto Rapkirwa, former Agriculture Cabinet Minister. Karibu sana.
It's really my pleasure.
Yes. And next to Bwana Kirwa, we have Samuel Pogisio. Is a former Majority Leader Senate and has also served as Cabinet Minister of ICT. Gentlemen, karibuni sana. We're hoping that Philip Kisia will be able to join us as we go along. But even before we take a look at the headlines, a lot has happened this past weekend. Unfortunate incidents, and the first one being the men's marathon world record holder, Kelvin Kiptum's death, which happened a few minutes to midnight last night along the Eldoret Eldama Ravine Road. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to say something on that. As also we look at other cases or instances of transition this past weekend. So because we have the case of Bwana King'ori Mwangi, former PPO, Nairobi. He also served in various other positions in the police service, as well as Edward Lowassa, former Prime Minister of Tanzania. Bwana Kirwa, let's start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ndimuli, for this opportunity to condone with the rest of the world about this young man, Kelvin Kiptum. At tender age, he has had to leave us, having performed very well in the marathon. I would also want to join other Kenyans and people of East Africa to mourn the death of King'ori, the former PPO. And finally, Edward Ngoyai Lowassa, former Prime Minister of Tanzania. And as you mourn Lowassa, it reminds us of the good performance he did and the role he played as a Democrat. And the fact that despite the fact that he competed in different party from the ruling party in the last elections, part one, he performed very well. And later on, of course, he joined the mainstream CCM. And that's why I think he's getting state funeral. It is reminiscent of democracy at its best. We know in 1984, in the same area of Manduli, we lost another Edward Moringe Sokoine, who was the Prime Minister of Tanzania, on road accident. It is unfortunate that we have to lose such individuals when we still need their wisdom, their performance and capacity in this country.
Okay, thank you. Bwana Pogisio.
Well, thank you, Bwana Ndimuli. First of all, just to be back on the studios, it's wonderful studios that you have. I want to take this opportunity to pass my condolences. Having heard about Kelvin Kiptum, the new, I think the newest record breaker, world record breaker actually, and just the prime of his life, just the prime of his life as an athlete, he was promising to break more records, and his coach, and just want to say, Pole sana to the family and to the people of Rift Valley at this point. A rising star has been dimmed. King'ori Mwangi, as you know, was a very effective police officer in this city, worked very hard with the government of the time, and we are sorry to have heard of his demise. And I'd like to pass condolences to the family, the friends, and the people of Nairobi who knew him, and also Kenya. I did a tweet on Lowassa because he was one of the people I was looking up to in my political life. I used to admire and wished that somebody from a minority community would actually eventually become president of Tanzania. He was a candidate for the presidency, he was prime minister, he was minister, he was member of parliament. I think his son actually, I think is a member of parliament at the moment. Of Manduli, of Monduli, yeah. So I think for Lowassa, I want to mourn with the Ma community, the people of Tanzania, East Africa, and I think he's a very well articulated man, a member of, in good standing, a very prominent business person, and so on. So just a good time to say we in Kenya mourn with the fellow Tanzanians, with the Tanzanians in this very difficult time. Okay. And I really want to appreciate the President of Tanzania, because she has sent a very warming message to the family. And I think they're going to give him a fitting send-off. Okay.
And some of these stories have been captured in the dailies today. King'ori Mwangi, I think even the Daily Nation on the top strip, they talk about the ex-police boss and Uhuru's many missed calls at Bomas. This is the role this police officer played during the 2013 presidential elections. At least on the dailies, because Edward Lowassa passed on Saturday. It is part of the front page of Mwananchi, the newspaper in Tanzania this morning. However, the news about Kelvin Kiptum is yet to feature in any of the dailies. It happened just a few minutes to midnight, so most of the daily newspapers had already gone to bed by that time. So you may not be able to see it on the front pages, but yes, the nation is mourning the loss of this young athlete. He only died at 24 years of age, and he was looking forward to actually achieving a new feat, running a full competitive marathon and in under 2 hours. So yes, it is a moment of reflection as big names in athletics and in politics, as well as security, transition. Kelvin Kiptum, an image there of Kelvin Kiptum, King'ori Mwangi and Edward Lowassa in Tanzania. And many people may not understand the relationship and why Edward Lowassa maybe is known to many Kenyans. But because of the cross-border community of the Ma, he attended a lot of those events in Kenya and even made comments about Kenya's politics, even endorsing at one point Uhuru Kenyatta's re-election. And that was major because in the region, leaders rarely do this.
Well, I think it's useful, and I also remember our president himself went to Uganda to campaign for President Museveni when he was a deputy president. You know, in Dimoli, East Africa is one country in a way, but because of the nuances of colonialism, we were made to feel different. It really, you do not have a country where there is no cross-border. When you talk of the Ma, perhaps even in Tanzania, during the morning of the funeral of Lowassa, you may realize a sizable population of Kajiado and Narok will be in that particular funeral. Yeah. Okay. And when you go back to Trans Nzoia and our neighbor here from West Pokot, there are enough of them in Uganda, and there are enough of the other Kalenjins like the Sabaot and the Sabine. So this is a country that was one, but because of the colonial relics, we feel we are different. Otherwise, it's just the border, which is really artificial, and it does not have any serious consideration about ethnic diversity of the region. Okay. So he's one of us, and some of us lived in Tanzania. I came the other day to go to school, but my parents were in Tanzania for the better part of their life, and a part of what we have in Trans Nzoia, we were able to get it in Tanzania. And Tanzanians accepted us better than we ourselves look at each other as Kenyans. There is a lot of deficit in terms of trust among Kenyans. But when we were in Tanzania, we were accepted. Okay. Even before my late mother and my father passed on, there used to be people from Tanzania coming to visit us. But today, if you left town, nobody will know where your house is.
Okay, allow me to invite onto the set Bwana Philip Kisia. He's already made it to studio. Philip Kisia, as a leadership and governance expert, has also served as town clerk of the city of Nairobi. Karibu sana Bwana Kisia, because we'd also want to get your comments on these issues we're discussing here. Good morning, karibu sana.
I don't want you falling like me.
Thank you.
Good morning. Karibu. Yes, Bwana Kisia, you found us discussing issues of transition, news items that have occurred this past weekend, the death of former Prime Minister of Tanzania, Edward Lowassa, the death of King'ori Mwangi, who served as Nairobi PPO for a very long time. who passed on yesterday, and now this news that we're receiving of the death of Kelvin Kiptum, the men's marathon world record holder, who passed on yesterday at the age of 24 in a road accident along the Eldoret-Eldama Ravine Road. And we just wanted to give each of you a moment to extend your message of condolences to all the three.
Thank you, and happy to meet my colleagues. We all served under the government of Kenya. And Emeritus Mwai Kibaki. Condolences to the people of Tanzania for losing a renowned leader, somebody I didn't know very well, but somebody I've read about, somebody who valued friendship, and he was fairly close to Kenya. I even understand that he had ties with the people of Kenya. Some of us claim him. It is a Maasai, so condolences. Then, of course, the young man that we've lost in a road accident, very unfortunate, at a very early age. Condolences to the family. Kingori Mwangi, somebody I worked with very closely when he was a PP of Nairobi. At that time, I was still in private sector. I together with other business men and women, had formed what we called the Nairobi Central Business District Association. And it is during his time and others that we started what we call the community policing in Kenya in the year 2000. So condolences to the family of Kingori. I met him not too long ago. We met in a funeral of my late uncle, Mohammed Ahmed, just about 3 weeks ago. So life can be very short. I mean, Kingori that I saw now, Kingori is no more. Condolences.
Okay. Thank you for that. Now, I want us to move to the headlines this morning. And one common headline is on the IEBC recruitment. I think we'll spend some time on that. On the Standard, the front page, it reads, tough choices in the face of a crisis. Tomorrow, Parliament returns from its December recess to a defining moment. The courts have said the reconstitution of IEBC must not wait for political horse trading. The House is to debate the National Dialogue report, even as Azimio leader Raila Odinga has said opposition must be involved in the selection of commissioners or they resume demonstrations. And they're saying here on the front page of the Standard that it is a Solomonic moment for Speaker Moses Wetangula. Of course, he'll be making that decision. It is also captured on the front page of the Daily Nation. Kenya Kwanza Azimio comes in fresh IEBC wars. Now, we had been waiting for this NADCO report to be presented to Parliament, but it would appear it has taken quite a very long time. We see that in instances where any subject matter is regarded as being of high priority, even Parliament is recalled for special sitting. But the fact that he waited for Parliament to actually exhaust their vacation recess says a lot. And questions are being asked, Bwana about the commitment of this, both the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, to actually proceed and still pursue whatever they agreed upon in the NADCO report.
Well, first of all, it is a very, very important matter. It's a national matter. It's a matter of life and death to politicians. That who is the referee in a match. And it's very important, therefore, that we don't have a type of IEBC that we have seen in the past, where they play with the players. I mean, you have a situation like that. So this is very, very important. So it's going to be high stakes on this particular matter. I have a problem with the younger generation. I guess we are growing older ourselves, who need to comment on everything in the streets. When the matter is that important, and I am telling you, I'm not sure about the Solomonic moment you're talking about, because I think if we want to get a balanced IEBC, we must all throw out our interests and look at the generations to come, not ourselves. If we look at the current candidates only, everybody picking their own, we should think about Kenya. We should think about the Kenya of tomorrow. not the Kenya of why my situation, I must have my own people here and there. So I think that's my own problem, is that let's think long term when thinking about whom we select. And let's please try and get people who can serve all Kenyans, not who are skewed to us. Because whatever you do, if you have members of the IEBC who are skewed in any way or another, who can be bought, you're coming back to the same place where we started. You're not going to have a difference. Okay. So that's my short comment on that.
Well, Akira, the challenge now is whether or not to still proceed with the NADCO report and adopt the recommendations thereof. Whereas the court has already pronounced itself on this matter and directed the selection panel to proceed and with the recruitment. Now what happens? The court has said this process should continue. The selection panel was already in place, yet this NADCO process has been dragged out for over a year, and the report is yet, as we sit here, is yet to be tabled in Parliament.
It's not been tabled.
Well, it is unfortunate, but I do hope that also the court does not rule in isolation. It makes certain judgments based on the realities of the day. The reality is that IBC must proceed to be constituted, but also it must be constituted in a way that both sides of the divide accept it as the body that can deal with the issues of the next election and many other matters incidental to it. Let's remind ourselves that the current IBC will be able to discuss issues of the constituencies within the limit of the law, of the Constitution, because the Constitution provides for minimum of 8 years and maximum of 12 years. Now we'll be exceeding the runway if we were to go beyond April this year. But NADCO report, I think, gave a breather of about 6 months for us to be able to manipulate. So I think the faster we move, the better it is. Also remember, therein, in the constitutional arrangement today, there is danger of us losing 27 constituencies that are now existing. This therefore means if we do nothing, we are going to defranchise 27 constituencies within the Republic of Kenya. It is a critical matter, but I know all the time, I remember, and I know the Honorable Bogisho knows, during the IPPG, we thought the country was going to go to the other side, but we were able to come together, hammer a common ground, agree, and that is how we managed to get Electoral Commission that stood the test of time until a certain process was bungled by those in the executive. So my take is that there is still hope, and that hope is still alive. And as Mheshimiwa Bogisho said, let us remove ourselves from it. Okay. When you win with the credible IBC, you become credible also. But if you make IBC not credible, you're already making the process flawed from the beginning of time. Okay, we're just about to take a break, but I'd like Bwana Kisia to give you an opportunity to comment on this briefly. We'll come back and continue the discussion. But do you feel like, in as far as the NADCO process is concerned, that it would appear like the political support is waning? It's no longer as strong as it was sometime last year.
Well, you know, this is a very weighty matter, and just like my colleagues have said, it's not something that should be taken very lightly. It is a matter that can take this country into flames. So I'm hoping that the two sides, and not just the two sides, Kenya as a whole will take this matter a bit more seriously and ensure that this time around we have an IBC that is credible, that can run an election, and when you lose, you lose. And when you win, everybody accepts that you've won. You know, right now, the legitimacy of this current government is at question, just because that we had an IEBC that was very, very incredible. I'm hoping that that will not happen again, and that we'll all come to our senses. Okay. There's nothing Solomonic about I think about this country. So I'm hoping that. My friend Watangula, in his rulings in Parliament with the Open, well, for lack of any better word, he'll be Solomonic, because a failure to come up with decisions that are fair and acceptable to all Kenyans, I I don't see this situation ending very well.
It is definitely a tough balance for the Speaker of the National Assembly, especially on the way forward and as far as the recruitment of the IEBC once Parliament reconvenes tomorrow from the December recess. Time now for a break. We'll be back with this same panel to continue discussion. Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indemuli, and I'm still in studio with Bwana Philip Kisia, leadership and governance expert, Kipruto Arap-Kirwa, former agriculture minister, and Samuel Pugisio, former senator and former ICT minister. And we still want to continue with this discussion on the IEBC recruitment. The headline on the front page of The Daily Nation talks about Kenya Kwanza and Azimio camps being in a fresh IEBC war. The story is on page 4, and the leaders in the two camps are reading from different scripts on which route should be followed. On one hand, the Azimio team is insisting that the NADCO report is a way to go, where we have an expanded IEBC selection panel, and it talks about an expanded panel comprising 2 Public Service Commission nominees, 3 by political parties, liaison committee, and 1 person from a party other than a parliamentary party. Others will be 1 person each from the majority and minority parties, Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and Kenya and Law Society. Well, the Religious Council of Kenya will nominate 2 people. It has been very well thought out and very well documented. But one wonders how come such a report was never expedited, despite the kind of money that was spent, the time it took, and the high level of leadership that was involved in this process. Bonakiro.
You know, the major challenge, Fred, that we have as a nation is a trust deficit. We don't seem to trust each other at all. And when we begin by mistrusting each other, whatever we do, we are just looking for ways of fixing the other side of the equation. This therefore means that perhaps those in the current administration accepted to form the committee for purposes of cooling the tempers that they had flared at that particular time. And once the tempers were down and people were able to sit down and discuss, they thought now we look for ways of manipulating this particular process. That is where I find ourselves being hypocritical, because the issues are weighty. The issues really, it's not about us, it's about this country. And I think the earlier we realize that this country is far more important than all of us put together, because there is a future and also there is a past of Kenya. And therefore we cannot afford to compromise the reality of Kenya just because we want to solve certain narrow interest and we want to score against the other side. My request and my proposal is that let us take the NADCO report seriously. Let us discuss. Let's not do posturing anymore. Let's go in, discuss, and agree. I've just referred to the IPPG report, which was really a product of all members of parliament coming together, accepting that, yes, we need to have an arbiter that when the results come out, we accept. And that is what made us build a Kenya after 2002 elections.
The NADCO report, Bonapugisi, was ready, I think, second or third week of December. We've seen instances where, and you've served as majority leader in the Senate, that if need be, the House can be recalled at any time to discuss a matter of priority. Do you think that this should have been one of those instances where that happened?
Yeah, I actually agree. We have the provision to call special sittings for things that are very important and urgent. And if we're thinking about April, for example, as the watershed, we should have called a special sitting of the houses. But you know, you remember this was a matter which was very contentious for NADCO. Very contentious. It was a matter that would determine whether that we would accept the report or not. And finally, I think reluctantly, the parties then agreed finally to say, yeah, we can include this subject matter and agree on this. The expanded selection panel is very important because it yields a better IEBC. So it actually behooves the members, especially the chairs, the co-chairs, would have pushed also for an urgent meeting, a special sitting for this discussion, so that knowing the weight of the work of IEBC, the weight that is waiting for the IEBC commission, for the commissioners, it is so weighty because this is the time we are dealing with boundaries. And you know how boundaries are. Number two, we're also trying to address a historical issue where every election ends and we are fighting each other. Every election ends and fighting each other. We're trying to cure that. So it's a very, very important matter. It should not be taken lightly. I don't see anything more important than doing this right now in Parliament. So I'm hoping that even when Parliament resumes, I'm hoping that this thing is actually a priority, number one, so that it doesn't get delayed also. It can also be lost in the...
It's because of the push and pull we are seeing, it means that there could be further delay in resolving this matter. But they say that in politics, nothing happens by accident, that even this delay that we are seeing here could be by design. There are those who argue that this matter of delimitation and review of constituency boundaries is not a very comfortable discussion to have at this time. And hence the willingness by some sections of the political divide to wait it out and actually openly defy a provision of the Constitution in as far as the deadlines are concerned, because by March this year, the deadline lapses. It will be the first time we are defying this provision of the law. Don't you think that, yes, it could be true that there's some people who are willing to actually wait it out and see this matter delay?
You know, Fred, this matter is very emotive, extremely emotive, sensitive, and I'm not surprised that those who are supposed to provide leadership have taken it lightly. And I think in their view, they believe that it will be business as usual. Because if you look at our country right now, there's no parliament. Parliament is basically run from State House. So then we have the executive run by one person. The same person has made every attempt to muzzle the judiciary. So I think, in my view, the other place now he's looking at taking full control is now the electoral process. And here is where maybe the president needs to be a bit more careful, because any silly mistake he makes will send this country into flames. So there is need for him to calm down. Most of us have accepted he's a president. If he himself doesn't believe that he's a president, and provide leadership. We need to sit down and resolve this matter like yesterday. Failure to which, then I think, if we keep on defying court orders, if we keep on overlooking the Constitution, we may as well say that we have no country. I think the best thing to do at this point in time, because we cannot defranchise other people. Mheshimiwa said here that we are likely to lose 27 constituencies. There are, I think, wards, even constituencies which don't have members of parliament or MCAs. And you see, this is a serious crisis. Supposing something happened in this country, and I keep on saying touch wood, but something can happen. You've seen my friend Kingori has gone, the young man has gone. Supposing something happens, number one, he's incapacitated. Something happens, number two, he's not available to provide, to fill in the gap. What happens?
Okay.
This is a serious crisis, but the way the Kenya Kwanza government has handled this matter, it is as if it's chicken feed. The president needs to wake up, get the other party, or the opposition, sit down with all the key stakeholders, and we know them, religious leaders, professionals, all the Kenyan representative key stakeholders, and we sit down and we come up with another IPPG. That selection panel is skewed towards one side, and it is dangerous. If it is not inclusive, we'll end up having another IEBC that probably is worse than what we had. It's so embarrassing that we have so many qualified Kenyans who can provide leadership in different spheres, but we always go for the worst, for short-term gains. So this time round, let us get it right. Let us not go for the worst when we have so many brains that can provide leadership, and ensure that we have a credible IEBC.
Let's focus a bit on this issue of the delimitation boundaries and review of boundaries, whose deadline lapses in less than a month. And it is a very emotive issue. And even the IEBC, the CEO of IEBC, Marjan, when he appeared before the NADCO committee to make a presentation, he submitted that a proposal that the issue of boundaries delimitation should ideally be removed from the roles of the IEBC. So that it's given to someone else, because it is very emotive, and there will always be a clash between the people who are preparing or conducting the elections and those who delimit the boundaries. Don't you think that probably that's a good idea, that if at all this issue had been delinked from the IBC, then probably the process of delimitation we would not be looking at a situation where we are going to defy the Constitution this time around?
Yeah, you know, we are dealing with two issues. One is the question of the next election, and also within that election issue are the issues raised by our good friend Philip Kisia, that there is a constituency today that has not has had an MP for 1 year, and there are many electoral areas for MCAs who are passed on for one reason or the other, who also are which are empty because they do not have their representatives. But there is also the component of allowing an institution to carve out certain parts of Kenya. Because Kenyans all the time have maintained the fact that we deal with each other with suspicion. If you go to South Nyanza, for example, or Migori, you'll find the Kuria, they want their own county. When you go to some constituencies, including my own constituency, Cherangani, people want to have certain constituencies in their own imagination that will give them some advantage over the diversity within the county. And that, to me, is very important. But you see, even if you gave it to another body, the constitutional provision that you do it 8 and 12 years is still going to obtain. And therefore, it was a mistake from the beginning for us not to think of what to do in future. We cannot say this regime came to power the other day. It came to power 2022, towards the end. And they had the whole 1 year to put that machine in the works for it to address that particular issue. But as to whether the CEO has a point, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that, of course, you don't make the referee the person who designs the field. No, because if you trust the referee and you trust whoever marks the field, then you get into the field knowing that there is fairness in the game from the beginning to the end. My main thesis that I still hold is that Kenyans have run out of trust, and therefore they are running a deficit of trust society. And the earlier we bring it back, the better it is for our country.
The other concern, Bonapogisio, is the fact that we appear to have found a route to defy the Constitution without consequence. The first time we did this was on the implementation of the 2/3 gender rule, especially even for the houses of legislation. Nothing happened. Even the court pronounced itself on that matter, nothing happened. Now this time around we look set to defy another provision of the Constitution, and the expectation is nothing much will happen. If up till now, 13 years later, we are yet to resolve the 2/3 gender rule, we could just defy the requirement for delimitation and review of boundaries and nothing happens. If we continue like this, aren't we setting a precedent where in future, even the election date may be defied and nothing will happen?
I think what you're saying is already here. It's not a matter of saying if we continue to defy, we've defied enough. The politicians of today are pushing the limit on every law and trying to make sure that it can be overlooked or surpassed or even overtaken. So this thing has come at this hour when people I mean, you listen to the politicians speaking today, and they're saying this must go through, this must be done this way, it's a must, and as though there is no law that governs it. And so I think the law and the Constitution of Kenya, 2010, should moderate, should regulate our thinking, our planning, and everything that we do to this country, if we want to make sure it's a safe country. But of course, this is a political process as well. So if you have a way of getting away with things, you are a smart politician. But
including defying.
I mean, yeah, you are just a smart politician. You get your things, you can do those things. But what is the consequence of that move to the country? You see, that is what you need to worry about. You can get away with it, but what is the consequence of it to this country? I think late President Moi said something that we will never clear from our minds. Siasa ni maisha. Siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya. Siasa mzuri, maisha mzuri. So you weigh for yourself. What kind of life are we in? What kind of life do we have today? What kind of life did we have yesterday? Because it's actually, the correlation is very clear between bad politics, bad decisions, and bad living. And I think that we just need to hope, like my friend Kise is saying, he hopes that the CEO of this enterprise, Kenya, would then be cautious of that, aware that it's siasa ni maisha.
Okay.
So I mean, we are pushing the limit on every side. And if we can get away with it, it's okay politically, but it's not okay life-wise.
And if you look at this issue of delimitation of boundaries, because it is a very thorny issue, it's a hot potato. Hence the debate about 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote, because some people believe some constituencies have too many people while others don't. And that's why we have those protected constituencies like Vita. For the purposes or for the period up until this deadline, the way things are going, do you think it will be tenable to have a delimitation or review of boundaries after this deadline and before the 2027 election? It could change the political game altogether.
You know, that is, Fred, that's a very, it's an issue that's too hot. And of course, you know, those who are in political leadership would want to avoid that discussion like a hot potato. But this is something that we must face head on. The Constitution 2010 is very clear on how boundaries can, constituencies can be created, boundaries can, it is clear, it's very, very clearly spelled out in the Constitution. So if we were people honest to ourselves, we would sit down and do what is right. There was an attempt by the previous administration to kickstart the process. Okay? And of course, there are those, when the reviews are done, there are those who will lose heavily politically. There are those who will gain. So those who are likely to gain, of course, are pushing for this thing to happen like yesterday. Those who are likely to lose are uncomfortable. If you look at areas, you know, the former central Kenya and say parts of Western and even Nairobi, those are areas that are likely to gain. But those in political leadership will be asking themselves, I mean, an increase in a number of constituencies in area A, are they likely to benefit me politically? So if the answer is no, then of course you become uncomfortable. So I see that being the situation, that the current administration is will most likely come out a loser. Because more constituencies in the former central province, with no guaranteed support come 2027, if you are my friend Pokisho saying that if you're a smart politician, but I'm just saying, you're not smart. You're just crooked. A crooked politician, of course, try to avoid a situation where he's likely to lose out. And that is what is playing out from what I can see. Now, what is likely to happen? My colleagues have already said that we have defied the Constitution so many times. Okay? The chances of us behaving well in the near future are very dim because we are known for being bad-mannered. I mean, this is now where we say, okay, if those in political leadership are not seeing the sense of sitting down and sorting out this matter amicably, then of course Kenyans should decide. I mean, then we may as well now say, you know, I mean, I'm sorry to say this, we may as well say the entire government packs off, Parliament goes home, and let us find a way of having a transition government.
Isn't it interesting that even Azimio has not been very vocal on this issue?
No, this is, we'll be comfortable to talk about this matter, but that's where we're headed to. Let us now say, okay, we have all failed completely. Let us have a transition government.
Okay. Isn't it interesting that even the Azimio leadership on this matter of delimitation has not been as vocal as it would appear? It's generally an issue where politicians in unison are not really keen on having this process take place.
Well, my main problem, just to address the issue that Mr. Philip Kisi has raised, I get worried when you talk about transition government. Because what I know in Africa, once you tip over, you don't come back. Or rather, we have bad guys.
There's no transition per se.
It becomes a permanent transition, and it may take 30 years. And some of us will not be in this town
like Uganda.
Witness, yes, like Uganda. They have waited for 36 years. But on a more serious note, I think, Fred, we don't seem to use the English words correctly. Because if we believe we are a republic, it means our first mandate stems from the people. Whether we are parliamentary democracy or whatever it is today, whatever the constitution, the Republic of Kenya means we begin by accepting that the people of Kenya have their prime mandate to assign any leader in power a position of leadership, and that leader from the same public must hold him accountable. Now, whether it is opposition or in government, I think it is imperative that we think of how to deal with issues, especially when it comes to issues of constitution. Yes, we might not have been vocal because we had pressing issues like the cost of living, which is still biting all of us. But we've been very clear as the opposition or as Azimio that constituency delimitation is an imperative that is constitutional requirement that we don't need even to spend a lot of time reminding an individual. Because if you want to precipitate a disaster in Kenya, go that route, that you are not respecting the constitution, and therefore your legitimacy will be questioned by the very essence that constitutional order has now been destroyed.
Okay. Wow, that is the issue of the IEBC and debates on how to reconstitute the IEBC. Parliament reconvenes tomorrow after a very long Christmas break, and they're finally back, and we do expect that that will be among the top agenda of the House. I want us to look at some politics now, and this is Azimio politics. It has come to the fore, especially over the weekend, with that pronouncement by Raila Odinga that he may support Bwana Kalonzo Musyoka. And many people are questioning this. And if my director could help me with a cartoon on page 10 of the People Daily, or the cartoon on page 13 of the Standard, because they speak to the same thing, on whether or not Raila Odinga will actually live up to this perceived promise to support Kalonzo Musyoka come 2027. And Bwana Pugisio, I know you've worked with the former Prime Minister for a while, and you have a relationship with him, and you understand his politics too. And why is there doubt on some of these pronouncements? He is a leader of not. He has served in very many capacities. Why are people still not taking his word? Yes, that's a cartoon on page 10 of the People Daily. And there it depicts Raila Odinga on one seat and stretching his hands, ready to give that crown to someone else. But the crown is chained to the seat where he's sitting. That's the one on, and it says, as you can see, I have no problem handing over to Kalonzo. That's the People Daily. The Standard has something similar, where the Raila Odinga is holding cards and he's saying, me, but if you look at the letters M-E, in there he's talking about Kalonzo Musyoka, but saying me at the same time. Why is there mistrust? Or why don't people believe Bwana Odinga's words on this issue?
Yeah, but first of all, let's give it a broader outlook, a broader approach. That in the wisdom of, in my view, senior politicians like Raila and Kalonzo, and I think in the wisdom of the Azimio fraternity also, you also don't want to make it known quickly.
It's too early.
You know, who will be your candidate. I mean, you want the guy to dissipate, or what do you want? So I mean, it's also in the general look at things. You also don't want to make it so obvious. And Kalonzo knows that, and Raila knows that. These are people who are seasoned in politics. And as you know, you also don't want to break your party. You don't want to break the coalition so soon and so early. So I'm not going to the details of whether people trust or not. One thing I know is that these two leaders, as you speak of them, have the capacity to deliver to the people of Kenya a credible president. And I think that whichever way the media portrays, and I don't like the portrayal of
these are two different cartoonists.
The cartoon, no, especially where
they seem to agree on that.
Especially where you put a wiper, and there is no place to put the crown, because you can see. Look at that. I mean, the crown is not on the head.
Yes.
It's literally on the wiper, which is not already landed. But I have trust in the two leaders. Absolutely, the two leaders are capable of giving us a credible president. It could be, in their wisdom, it could be either of them. It could be even somebody outside of those three. But for the sake of a very strong opposition coming to this country and making sure that they deliver, I would say let them keep it in the balance like that.
Bwana Pogisio says it's too early. But if you look at the front page of the Star this morning, it talks about something similar. Raila 2027 bid. That's the headline I'm reading there on the screen. Raila 2027 bid, new faces in as old guards sit out. It is a discussion that is already there. It is rife. Will Raila run or not come 2027? Do you still feel that it is too early to have this discussion?
I think, you know, a day in politics is a long time. Eh? So I do agree with my colleagues that it is too early to start, showing your candidate who your candidate is, because anything can happen to that candidate. It is too early. We still have about 2.5, 3 years to start our campaigns, although some people already started. Instead of working, they're on rooftops campaigning. So let me pick from where my friend Pogisio. Let me pick from where.
Opt for caution for now.
Yeah, let me pick. You see, these two gentlemen are seasoned, and I can tell you they know that if there's any time their wisdom is required, it is this time round. Kenyans have come to accept that they made a mistake in 2022. Kenyans are going through pain. And these two gentlemen and the team who are working with him, some of them are already here, I like the fact that they will need to really put up a formidable team. A team that will win the elections that are called in 2027, if not even early. Okay? So, whether it will be Kalonzo running, whether it will be Raila, or not, why not Pogisio, why not Philip Kisia, we all qualify. But I think the time to decide who the candidate would be is not now. The other priorities that we should be dealing with, like IEBC.
3.5 years cannot really be said to be too long for a presidential bid. Even in other jurisdictions, we see people presenting themselves early enough. Bwana Kalonzo Musyoka himself said that after the 2022 elections, he will do it the way William Ruto did it, that you start campaigning immediately for the next 5 years. We already see him on the campaign trail. He has just embarked on a visit to Mount Kenya region this week, and he's already campaigning. Are we still feeling that it's too early to do this?
Well, it's useful just to go back to our history. Remember 2002, Kibaki Tosha happened on the eve of the general election. We had two separate undertakings, one by KANU which was KANU and NDP, that was sort of destroyed in Kasarani. Remember the late Joseph Kamoto saying that Kasarani became Kisirani. And the LDP brothers came out of that place really furious. As in the NRK, we had, by 18th of September 2002, picked a team comprising the late Kibaki, Mama Ngilu, and the late Kijana Wamalwa. And that is September before December election. This therefore informs you that really to pick the team does not have to take now. But what we need to do is to continuously do the bonding, and we warm the ground as we prepare for that. 2013, the same thing. It was towards the end that Uhuru Kenyatta paired up with William Ruto, almost on the eve of the election, because I remember I was in Ethiopia at that time, William shuttling to Musalia, shuttling to Raila, and shuttling to Kalonzo. And eventually, of course, he paired up with Uhuru. Whatever the arrangement they had is a story for somebody to write a book. So most of these things really do not happen like 2 years before. Otherwise, you will burn out because all the arsenal from the state will be focused on you. And it will not be very interesting. Now, finally, on the issue of trusting Raila, I think we've been more than unfair to Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Raila has sacrificed so many times, including the Kibaki Tosha thing. Many people did not expect. We went to Serena Hotel, agreed. Then Mzee Nyachai was also part of the team that we were discussing together. Then we did not reach some kind of conclusion. Then we said, okay, people are already in Uhuru Park. What are we going to tell them? Somebody said, okay, let's cross over, tell them we've agreed on one candidate, but we'll give you on another day. Then Raila pulls the surprise Kibaki Tosha, and that became the rallying call for that particular election, 2002. He has also, in the past, accepted to play second fiddle to many other leaders. So, you know, to say Raila is not going to do what he's saying is also underrating that Raila is not an individual, he's an institution. And he has a constituency behind him that he must prepare. You know, many of us as leaders, even at the constituency level, we are captives of our own supporters because they are people without Raila in the ballot. Their political game plan must be able to change. Otherwise, they will perish or they will be decimated from the political landscape.
But sustaining a coalition from one electoral cycle to another has proven quite a difficult thing to do here in Kenya. We've seen CORD morph into something different, and now NASA change immediately after election. Now we're seeing Azimio. And question is, will Azimio as it is right now last to 2027? You know, or do we expect changes?
The challenge in Kenya for the last 20 years, apart from KANU winning a number of elections up to 1997, for the last 20 years, or slightly more, no formation has formed the government twice. So us morphing into a new dispensation or a new outfit is just the politics of Kenya, because in Kenya, like many other countries in Africa, we have not created organic political parties that can stand the test of time. It's still a coalition of communities, a coalition of individuals for certain conveniences. So Azimio even morphing into something else, even to NASA, or even to whatever the formation, is something that you expect because bado tunatafutana. Because there are many people in Kenya Kwanza that I would be comfortable with on the Azimio side. And there are some individuals in Azimio that I would not want to spend a minute with them. So we are looking for each other. This country and politics continues to be dynamic.
Are you saying you're uncomfortable with some of the people in Azimio right now?
I'm saying there could be some people. I'm using the word there could be some people in Azimio that I may not be comfortable. But there are many people in Kenya Kwanza that I would be comfortable to work with.
Okay.
I don't want to name names, but there are people, I know they are good people, but they are dealing with a bad system.
Okay. But Apogisi, on this issue of sustaining coalitions for a full electoral cycle from one election to another.
It is tough in Kenya. Very tough to hold together to the end.
Especially after a loss of...
even with winning, even if you win, the winners and the losers have a tough time maintaining the coalition. Even in this current government, there are people who are probably not sitting well and are thinking of the next mathematics. And you know, Kenyan politics and elections, presidential elections, is about the math that goes with communities, that goes with regions, that goes with the drivers of those communities. And you can see already jostling, even in Mount Kenya region, jostling who are going to be the drivers for the next leg of this thing. So that's why it's not easy to declare, because you're still jostling. And as Honorable Kiro is saying, for the last 20 years, very brand new formations have taken over power. Very brand new. I mean, just put together the last minute and it becomes the ruling. But this country is a history. This country is actually a case to study in the world.
Yeah.
About how do you form a party and win an election? This is very strange.
Do you feel like Bwana Kalonzo will disadvantage himself by putting himself out there a bit too early?
Mr. Kalonzo is doing the same math that everybody is doing. But the best thing is, and what is helping right now, is that Kalonzo is consolidating the region where he comes from, and is coming out as the one who is the driver of that region. And now he has to look for other drivers in other regions, plus the mathematics of who has more votes, and so on. So that's why I don't see it as a rush. I want it to stabilize. And that's the thing, what I see as Azimio doing is they're trying to stabilize the votes for purposes of now the addition, and then find the right drivers, the people who are going to drive this particular region of votes. Because Kenya, by the way, we are about tribes and regions and drivers of those regions. So I see those two leaders stabilizing their positions and now joining with others to make sure that they wrap up. And I think the same thing that the government guys are doing. Some people will be dropped. Even in this government, some people will be dropped because they'll be looking for who is driving better in this particular region. And so these coalitions are not done yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Bwana Kisia, on Kalonzo especially, the fact that he's received quite some prominence, especially with him co-chairing the NADCO process. Now we're seeing that pronouncement by Raila Odinga. Now we're seeing Kalonzo Musyoka going out to Mount Kenya region. And if at all we're saying that it could be too early to do some of these things, are we saying he may be at a disadvantage by starting too early?
No, there's nothing wrong in selling your policies to the people as early as this. That's what any brilliant politician would do. Because see, once you are out of sight, you're out of mind, right? So Kalonzo is using that void to remind Kenyans that he is available. He is probably, out of all the politicians we have, that he is the candidate who can be trusted. So like my brother Pogisha said, he's consolidating his area and has done very well. He's reaching out to other areas, okay? And hoping that in another 2-3 years, he'll be a brand that people can trust. And he'll have the capacity to attract other drivers in other regions. So there's nothing absolutely wrong with what Kalonzo is doing. I would do the same. You can't sit and wait to be given this thing. You must go for the thing. That's what Kalonzo is doing.
Okay.
I mean, you think Raila will just come and give it to you because you're friends? You've been in other coalitions before? No. He'll also want to hand over to somebody who can deliver, this election. So, I mean, Kalonzo is on the right trajectory. I would support what he's doing.
Okay. Yes, the cartoons today speak a lot to do with the Azimio politics. But I want us to move as we come to the end of this discussion and look at something that we anticipate will happen sometime next week. And that is the second Kenya Kwanza cabinet retreat. We saw the first retreat in Sagana, and there were fireworks. Those who arrived late were sent away. So much has happened, and we've seen enough assessment of the performance of members of this cabinet. Many would have expected that a reshuffle would have happened by now. Do you think that time is ripe for such kind of a move by the president?
You know, the president will not undertake a reshuffle, because a reshuffle is supposed to be a product of assessment of an individual who has either performed or not performed, so that you can shift somebody from one ministry to the other to go and fix something which the other person has failed to fix, or you remove somebody because there is certain urgent issue that needs to be followed in depth, and his presence in that particular office may prevent any further scrutiny of the issues. The main culprit in this administration is the president himself, who has decided to be minister of all ministries, permanent secretary in all ministries, and without creating a team that is able to deliver with synergy. When people talk of Kibaki delivering, it is he who allowed ministers to perform and allowed ministers to be in charge of their portfolios, so that if a minister is a good manager and a good leader for that particular matter, would be able to create some synergy within his ministry in a way that everybody feels involved. Because you see, governance is about allowing each person, and depending on the competencies, to perform. But the president, if he was to do a reshuffle, it will be just a musical movement of chairs, because he himself, I do not believe, and I have every reason to hear, having been in that cabinet, just like my colleague Bogisio, people will tell you, because they know you can keep certain level of confidentiality. Most of the cabinet meetings, papers are not prosecuted the way they ought to be prosecuted. Mm-hmm. For President Kibaki, he would not even talk much, and he can attest to that. He would allow you to prosecute your paper. Having prosecuted your paper, other people will intervene and give different perspectives. Let's say if you are dealing with issues of ICT, there are other people, not necessarily in that ministry, but ministers from other ministries who will give you their perspective insofar as security is concerned, foreign policy, and upon the discussion, ventilation, certain deliverables are arrived, and action, you mark whoever is going to do it. Mm-hmm. They say this Minister of Finance, Minister of ICT, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the subsequent cabinet meetings is a follow-up of issues that have already been discussed. Mm-hmm. This cabinet, for the time I've been able to just eavesdrop, is that it is one-man show. You go there, you prosecute your paper, in the middle of it, you are rubbished, and somebody gives direction. And for the information of the public and for those who care to listen, you know, this government is operating on the basis of manifesto without requisite policy direction. Mm-hmm. Manifesto is not an instrument that you can use for 5 years. You are supposed to have a policy position so that you look at other policies they're already in existence, and you're able to realign within the resources available, and also so that you don't clash. Public servants operate better with policy, not manifesto.
A lot of these cabinet secretaries have been said to not be very visible, and that has been used to rate their performance, visibility. Do you agree with that kind of rating? That the more you see a CS, probably the better they're performing?
First of all, we must understand that this is the best form of government for William Ruto, because you're dealing with people who are not politicians. You're dealing with people who are like civil servants. You're appointed ministers who have no constituency backing. They have no basically they have no influence in society, and you put them together just because it was a last-minute business. You put them together. There you can control. What Kibaki didn't have is that kind of privilege. What Moi didn't have, that all those ministers were politicians, and they had constituencies. And you could tell the president your point of view. You could actually, many times, and President Kibaki, and by the way, I think when Mr. Kiro was Minister for Agriculture, he remained Minister for Agriculture for almost the whole time, the entire period. Yeah. When I was in ICT, I stayed there for the entire 5 years, and things moved. Yeah. The ICT we have today was established during our time. Whatever you have today in terms of media and ICT. So, but now this is a situation where these guys, you can tell them off. I mean, where will they go? The background is that you can actually manipulate. You can actually you can run the show, and they will be mesmerized by it. But it's because we decided that cabinet secretaries will be non-politicians, and then the only politician in that place would be the president, the deputy president. The rest would be just people who, if you tell them, for example, Mr. Kirwa, did we make a mistake appointing you? I would retreat, right? Because that is likely to be what you say. So give the people who are performing the benefit of the doubt, because how do you perform if you have no motivation? And how do you perform if you are limited in what you can do?
Is that your assessment, that there's lack of motivation within the cabinet?
I mean, this is what's obtaining. It's not my assessment. It is what the eyes can see. And that's why we say they have not been visible. If you are motivated, you'll be visible, right? You'll be visible. You'll be. In fact, I have seen, for example, I'll give 2 examples, and I've seen the Minister for Education, for example, who's becoming very visible, but who is now thinking he can engage in Kisii politics, right? And you can see the fireworks in Kisii. I've seen also, I think the one for ICT. The way we set cabinet, you can never involve them in your politics, because they're not meant to be politicians, seriously speaking. You allow them to perform their duties and drive the agenda of the ministries, and you trust them. There's one thing that Honorable Kirwa has introduced this morning, which I like. It's called trust deficit. And in this country and in business, we must begin to talk about trust as the currency of leadership. Without trust, with a shortage or lack of trust, we will have to expend a lot of our money trying to work. Okay. And yet we are not building that trust. And a cabinet is built around trust. And my advice, because I'm an elder, I can advise, is that presidents begin to set a standard of trust for his cabinet, and then evaluate them on the level of trust, and give them the opportunities to work.
Okay. Bonakisia, you've seen the style of leadership by President William Ruto, even sometimes telling off his cabinet publicly. Should we expect something? Do you think that is something that we'll expect maybe come next week?
Leadership is something that is very interesting. And sometimes when you're put in a position of leadership and you're not ready, you've not been trained. And even it is made worse when you don't accept that you have certain weaknesses. It can be very dangerous. So I see a situation where we have a president who believes that he knows everything. He's very good at education, matters, health, security. He's everything. He knows it all. But the truth of the matter is that the man is short of so many things. Okay? It is even made worse when he surrounded himself with people fairly weak. People who cannot look at him in the eyes and tell him, Mr. President, here you're wrong. Now, they have talked about having a retreat, I think next week. What are they reviewing? You see, during Kibaki's time, we were very clear on what the Ministry of ICT was supposed to deliver in every financial year. And then President Kibaki would give you the necessary resources that were required to do the job. He'll give you the support that was required. Okay? He will not talk to you. He'll wait for the results. So when I hear there is our president, William Ruto, getting into a retreat, what are they going to review? Because we don't know. As Kenyans, I don't know whether my colleagues know. During Kibaki's time, things were in the open. We knew. You would go to the website and you'd be told, this is what the Ministry of Agriculture is going to do in this fiscal year. 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And the performance was judged based on what he had signed for. Do we know what the ministers have signed for? If they have signed for something, then it's only known to William Ruto.
Okay.
So William Ruto has a very serious problem, but I don't blame him, because I keep on saying that he wasn't ready for the job. I don't think he has the experience that is required to provide leadership at that level. You know, when you're CEO of a huge multinational corporation like Kenya, you know, you need certain qualities. You need certain experiences. In my estimation, he's lacking, he's weak, he needs help. But the problem is he believes that he doesn't need help.
He's getting a lot of help. He's getting a lot of help. He has even managed to
getting
create
help from where?
Another layer. And I don't know if this also undermines the cabinet, because there's this layer of advisors, especially on economic matters. Even Henry Rotich.
Fred, we all know those advisors mean nothing to William Ruto. They're only there to fill offices and to earn a salary. William Ruto does not listen to advice from anybody.
Okay.
He listens to himself.
Okay. What does it mean when you are the minister, substantive minister for agriculture, and then the president has all these advisors on agricultural matters? Yes, the president has advisors, but he has a whole team. Doesn't it make the cabinet secretary feel undermined to some extent?
You know, any officer working with the minister must be having certain order of reporting. And, you know, in management and governance, Philip Kisha knows better than some of us, you cannot report to two bosses. You must have one boss that you are reporting to, and that boss reports to another person, and that's how order is created. Because the very issue of governance is supposed to be processes that are systematic, and you're supposed to follow in a certain way. That's why, even as, without looking like I'm over-glorifying the Kibaki regime, apart from the cabinet meetings, which were regular, we also had subcommittees for certain sectors of the economy led by a certain minister, such that I think we had about 6 subcommittees. So that as we were discussing in those subcommittees, we were able to funnel issues. By the time you prepare your cabinet paper, it has already been synthesized at that particular level. And those committees is what now we formed the National Economic and Social Council, an instrument that was responsible for 2030 Vision 2030. It was a discussion that was even involving the private sector. It was involving intellectuals, and it was involving the public, and also all public servants were involved in a way that, so that when you take a retreat, it is for a specific agenda, and that agenda is clear. And when you get back to the ministry, you know what is your role as a minister for A ministry, minister for B ministry, such that there is some kind of synergy. And one other thing is, if you made a mistake during Kibaki's time, he will not reprimand you in the open. It will make you to almost own your mistake and be able to correct the mistake yourself in such a way that you move with confidence. But you see, if you are reprimanded in public, you lose confidence. And I thank God. You know, I worked with William Ruto as the deputy when he was deputy president, and I suspect I would have been a minister in his cabinet. I would be a frustrated minister today.
Wow.
Because I cannot tolerate that kind of thing, that you are the boss and somebody is reprimanding you. It's like I come to your house and insult you because you owe me 10,000 shillings. I'm not suggesting that you owe before your children.
Well, Apogisi, you get to give us a final word on this issue, because the president last week hired Henry Rotich, a former CS, as one of his economic advisors, economic and financial advisors. And when someone of that caliber is hired to advise the president, where does it leave the officers who are already there? And would you, in this instance, feel undermined if you were the Treasury Cabinet Secretary, for example?
Well, I think already the Cabinet Secretary is marooned with layers already that report direct to the president. And I remember there was a time when it was even thought that his frustrations were coming out. But let me just say this, and I'm told also that I think I was reading somewhere that Henry Rotich did not accept the job for some reason. But the idea that you bring out is that there is a way in which the president can surround himself with advisors, give them offices, give them opportunity to make a living. But really, does the economic team, for example, really influence the outcomes of any of our economic direction, or not? So yeah, I believe you need to have advisors, but those advisors must also be listened to. And I think for a younger president like William Ruto it's because he's a younger president among all our presidents. Uhuru was young as well when he started. Ruto is young. Kenya has had older presidents before. For younger people like him, he would rather surround himself with a more experienced advisors and people he can listen to, people he can respect. But not advisors whom, again, you'll be the one advising them. You need to build a team of advisors whom you respect. If I were president today on agriculture, I would pick Kirwa, because I would respect what he tells me. Yeah, but if I pick somebody whom I'm going to say dismiss, it will be difficult for us to make progress in the area of agriculture. But the other thing that I want to make sure that the advisors don't give you ideas so that you actually act outside of those ideas. They give you ideas so that they hope that you can act within those ideas. And I think that is what advice is. And actually, I'd like to be an advisor if possible, because I think as an advisor, I would probably be heard. You know why? Because I'm probably more experienced in this politics world, but I'm also older. I have an age. So, but also secondly, I would be a good listener, but I would like to see what I'm saying executed. Because I would actually go to greater length to make sure, for the sake of the country,
that the advice you offer someone is actually taking it.
It's value for money.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bwana Samuel Pogisio, a former Majority Leader Senate and former ICT Minister, Kipruto Kirwa, also a former Agriculture Cabinet Minister, and Philip Kisia, Leadership and Governance Expert, also a former Town Clerk Nairobi. Our panelists this morning, I told you today was going to be heavy. These are very eminent Kenyans helping us discuss the headlines and what matters to us. Straight to editorial comment this morning. The disgraceful trend of turning funeral and burial ceremonies into arenas for political power struggles has reached an intolerable level. It is utterly shameful that politicians and leaders are stooping so low as to exploit these solemn occasions for their own selfish gains, completely disregarding the dignity of the deceased and the grief of the bereaved. The recent clash between Education CS Ezekiel Machogu and Kisii Governor Simba Arati at the burial of a Kisii National Polytechnic Principal Daniel Nyariki is an example of such appalling behavior. Instead of showing respect and offering condolences, these leaders shamelessly use the funeral as a stage for their personal vendettas and political posturing. It is high time for our leaders to show some semblance of shame and decency. Funerals and burials are sacred rites where families bid farewell to their loved ones with reverence and respect. They're not battlegrounds for political egos or turf wars. Hiring crowds to disrupt these solemn ceremonies is not just reprehensible, it is a reflection of the moral bankruptcy of those who engage in such tactics. Exploiting vulnerable youth for political gain is nothing short of despicable and must be condemned in the strongest possible terms. As a society, we must demand better from our leaders. We must demand that they show respect for the sanctity